everybody, this is Lara from Hong Kong at the moment with a quick technical update for the Bitcoin US dollar pair. Just technicals for Bitcoin. If you want Elliott Wave, you can get it. You can find that on our website, pureelliottwave.com. I analyse Bitcoin in full every Monday for my membership. I am expecting lower prices, and I've been expecting lower prices for Bitcoin for a while. I expected them back here. We made a slight new high and then very quickly reversed, and now it looks like price may be breaking below what was supported 100,000. This is the weekly chart, so this candlestick is not complete, so I'm not going to change the support to resistance. I'll only do that once price is actually closed at the end of the week below this area, if it does. So far it's strongly testing support about 100,000. It looks like it probably will break through. Look for next support about 92,000. At these highs we have a gravestone doji and a dark cloud cover bearish candlestick reversal patterns. Let's have a look in what context that came, and let's identify if there is any divergence. So there's a pivot on price here and there's a pivot on price here. Volume is pushing price lower, so the volume profile is bearish, telling us to expect most likely lower prices ahead, at least for the short term, if not the mid-term. The last signal given from on-balance volume was a bearish break below some reasonable support. This trend line is fairly close to horizontal. It has 3 previous tests. It's not long held, but this is the weekly time frame, so we should have given that a bit of weight, and now price is moving lower, so that bearish signal is probably now resolved or has played itself out. ADX at the weekly time frame is declining. Previously, the upward trend reached extreme, but not very extreme, not as extreme as it can for Bitcoin. At the all-time high, the upward trend was waning, so this is not divergence, but you kind of read it the same way. ADX didn't reach as an extreme a level as it did for previous all-time highs. At the all-time high, the trend was waning, and now there's no clear trend. Those pivots I identified for price, there is bearish divergence after RSI reached overbought at the weekly time frame, not as overbought as it can get and not for as long as it can be overbought, but it did reach overbought, and then RSI makes a lower pivot while price made a higher pivot. So this divergence is bearish. RSI is a measure of strength within the market. A common misconception is it's measuring strength between Bitcoin and other markets. It's not. It's measuring strength of Bitcoin at this point in time, previous to previous price behavior. So RSI is indicating there's waning strength, there's weakness, this divergence is bearish, so it's unsurprising we're getting some downward movement from Bitcoin at the moment. There's corresponding bearish divergence between price and money flow as well. Now RSI and money flow may continue deeper until they get close to or oversold, while the trend may be indicated as a downward trend at the weekly time frame shortly, and then I'll wait to see if RSI and money flow reach close to oversold, and if we see any bullish divergence. If we see that, then I'll expect that the bear market is complete. But for now, there's plenty of room for price to go lower following that bearish divergence. While volume is pushing price lower, ATR as a measure of volatility is increasing as price falls. Volatility and volume favour the downside. Expect lower prices for Bitcoin for at least the short to mid-term. And the picture at the daily time frame is pretty much the same. Price has fallen through what was support at 112 and 106,000, now testing support quite strongly about 110,000. We need to see a close, 100,000, not 110. We need to see a close below 100,000 before we can expect a further fall in price, but for now that's where it's finding support. And as at the weekly time frame, the next support below that, if price can close below 100,000, expect it to fall further to 92,000 for the short term. Volume is pushing price lower. Overall volume is declining, but strongest sessions are still downward. The volume profile is bearish, telling us to most likely expect a continuation of downward movement overall for Bitcoin. Don't expect price to move in a straight line. That's not how markets behave, but do expect overall downward movement, and look for those support areas for where you can expect a little consolidation or a bounce along the way down. There's no reasonable range currently for on-balance volume. I could draw a support line across here and a resistance line across here, but it'd just have too steep a slope to have any reasonable technical significance. So I'll wait to see if on-balance volume can develop some kind of sideways consolidation like one of these, draw my trend lines, and then wait for a breakout for a signal. ADX tells us there's a downward trend at the daily time frame, not yet at the weekly though. ADX rose up from below both DX lines, but it didn't rise up from below 15. So this is not the strongest bearish signal it can give. So I'm expecting this downward movement is an interim bear market within the larger secular bull market. But I am expecting this bear market is not yet done. I expect lower prices for Bitcoin for the short to mid-term. RSI is not oversold and there's no bullish divergence, so expect the downward trend to continue until RSI reaches oversold, and then it may exhibit some bullish divergence. ATR is showing volatility to the downside. From here to here, ATR showed an increase as price was rising, and then a really strong increase as price fell down to here with red candlesticks. And then ATR showed a further little increase at the start of this rise, and then a decline here as price rose up, and now it's starting to show another increase from here as price falls. So volatility is favoring the downside, volume is favoring the downside at both the daily and weekly time frames. After that previous upward trend reached extreme, RSI and money flow reached overbought and they exhibited bearish divergence at the weekly time frame. It's unsurprising we're getting downward movement from Bitcoin. Expect this downward trend is likely to continue until conditions reach extreme oversold and we see some bullish divergence. So look for these support areas below as areas where we may see a little bounce or a consolidation within the ongoing downward trend for Bitcoin. That's it from me today with a quick Bitcoin update for you, and I will be giving you an XRP update in my next video.